Hi, enjoy listening. Megan Carter had always been a dreamer. Even as a little girl, when the other kids in her small Midwestern town chased each other through dusty streets, she would stand still and imagine another life. A life where she didn't have to think about whether there was enough money for groceries, or if her clothes looked worn compared to everyone else's. In her mind, a real person wasn't someone who scraped by day to day. A real person lived in a home with furniture that matched, owned clothes that weren't faded from too many washes, and never had to count out change at the gas station. To Megan, being a real person meant freedom. The town she lived in, Millbrook, was the kind of place where progress seemed to have stopped decades ago. Rusting pickup trucks lined driveways, paint peeled off houses that hadn't seen a brush since the 70s, and folks still carried the same bitter jokes about how poor was respectable. For most, it was enough to work at the feed plant, drink cheap beer on weekends, and keep expectations low. Megan's mother, Linda Carter, fit right in with that outlook. By the time Megan was 13, her mother had started to look at her with suspicion. Megan had taken to washing her small collection of clothes often, trying to keep them looking neat instead of the dull grey that came from the family's overused washing machine. "What are you doing, girl?" Linda asked one Saturday, watching Megan scrub at a t-shirt in a bucket. "The laundromat's for Saturday nights. You'll just wear that shirt again tomorrow anyway." Megan looked up, annoyed. "Mum, I don't want to wear the same thing 3 days in a row, and that machine ruins everything. It makes my green shirt look brown." Linda let out a sharp laugh. "Clean is clean. Nobody cares what colour it comes out." "I care," Megan said quietly, tugging at her mother's faded dress sleeve. "Wouldn't you rather wear something bright instead of whatever colour this is?" Her mother swatted her hand away. "Don't be ridiculous. People here don't put on airs. We all live the same, and that's the way it's always been. You think you're better than us?" Megan swallowed her words, but inside, she wanted to scream. Her father, Robert, was quieter, slower to anger. He worked long shifts at the dairy farm outside town, and most evenings he came home exhausted. But sometimes, when Linda wasn't listening, he gave Megan a look that told her he understood. The only person Megan could really talk to was Ethan Miller. They had been friends since grade school. Though Ethan had been held back a year after a bad accident left him with a broken leg, Ethan never made fun of Megan's dreams the way others did. He'd sit with her under the big oak tree behind the schoolyard and listen as she described the city she would one day live in, the salon she would own, the clothes she would wear. "You'll make it," Ethan told her once, his voice quiet, almost embarrassed. "You'll get out of here." But when Megan was 16 and told her parents she wanted to be a hairstylist, Linda burst out laughing. "A hairstylist? For who, huh? You think people in Millbrook got money to waste on haircuts every month?" she sneered. "You'll be lucky if old Mrs. Gray lets you trim her bangs once a year." "I'm not staying here," Megan said firmly. "I'll move to the city." Her mother's face hardened. "You were born here, you'll die here. That's how it works. Don't you go thinking you're some fancy city girl." But Robert Carter spoke up then, surprising everyone. Not everyone's meant to stay, Linda. Let her try. Maybe she'll be the one who makes it out. Linda turned on him with sharp words, but Megan barely heard them. For the first time, she felt like someone believed in her. That night, she ran to the oak tree, where Ethan was waiting. The stars stretched wide over Millbrook, the way they always did, as if mocking how small the town really was. "I'm leaving," Megan whispered, "no matter what it takes." Ethan looked at her, the corners of his mouth twitching like he wanted to smile, but couldn't quite manage. "Then I guess I'll believe it too." Graduation day came like a curtain lifting on a stage. Megan had been waiting for her whole life. Her classmates buzzed about which local factory or farm they'd be working at, who was headed to the community college an hour away, and who was already pregnant. Megan kept quiet. She didn't want to hear the laughter again if she said out loud what she planned. That summer, with her father's encouragement, she applied to a vocational program in the nearest city, about 2 hours away. Officially, she was enrolled in sewing classes, what Linda approved of, but Megan had secretly signed up for evening cosmetology courses offered at the same school. They weren't expensive, but they weren't free either. When she told Robert what she wanted, he didn't argue. He simply disappeared into the garage, where Megan knew he kept an old coffee tin of money he'd been saving for a motorcycle. He came back with it and pushed it into her hands. "I was planning on riding something shiny down Main Street," he said with a tired smile. "But you go shine instead. You'll get further than I ever did." Megan stared at the bills, tears threatening to spill. "Dad, it's too much!" "It's not enough," he interrupted gently. "But it'll get you started. Don't waste it." By fall, Megan had packed her few belongings and moved into the school dorms. The city wasn't what she imagined. It was noisy, grimy in places, and full of people who didn't notice her at all. But to Megan, that anonymity felt like freedom. No one cared if her jeans were faded or if her accent gave her away. She could be anyone. The sewing classes were easy enough, though she had no passion for them. What lit her up were the nights she swept the salon floor, where she had taken a part-time job. The owner, Mr. Jennings, was a strict man in his 50s, but he saw how Megan watched every cut, every style, memorizing the motions with hungry eyes. After a few weeks, he let her wash hair. After a few months, she was trimming split ends. At school, she met Carla Ruiz, another girl who took cosmetology classes at night. Carla came from a Mexican-American family in the suburbs, and unlike Megan, she didn't need to hide her ambitions. The two became fast friends. Carla's confidence rubbed off on Megan, who learned to speak up, to practice her craft with pride instead of shame. But back home, the news didn't travel well. When Megan returned for the holidays, Linda's words cut sharper than scissors. "Look who's back from her city life," Linda said the moment Megan walked in. "What? They not treating you like royalty out there? You remembered you've got a family?" Megan ignored the sting, hugged her father, and went to her old room. The walls looked smaller now, as if even the house was trying to push her out. That night, she snuck out to the oak tree. Ethan was already there, taller now, his voice deeper, but his eyes the same. "I thought you'd forget about this place," he said softly. "Never," Megan replied. "I just can't stay here." They sat in silence for a while, their breath visible in the cold air. Finally, Ethan asked, "You think you'll really make it? Be somebody?" Megan clenched her fists in her lap. "I have to. I can't come back here and settle for less. I'd rather starve than give up." Ethan nodded slowly, though something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or the kind of sadness that comes when you know someone you love is slipping away. When Megan returned to the city, she felt more determined than ever. The world didn't owe her anything, but she was ready to fight for her place in it. Life in the city quickly lost its shine. The first few weeks had felt like freedom, but by winter, reality settled in. Megan's days blurred together, sewing classes in the morning, part-time shifts at the salon in the afternoon, cosmetology lessons at night. By the time she returned to the dorm, her feet ached, her fingers were raw, and she often fell asleep before she could even eat. Money was tight. The bills her father had given her were dwindling, and her paycheck from sweeping floors barely covered rent and groceries. Sometimes dinner was nothing but instant noodles and tap water, Megan told. Still, she refused to quit. Mr. Jennings, the salon owner, noticed her determination. One night, after everyone had gone home, he lingered by the chairs while Megan wiped down the counters. "You're wasting your time in sewing," he said suddenly. Megan froze. "Excuse me? I've watched you. You've got hands for this work. You care. That can't be taught. If you stick with it, you could be good, real good." The words lit something inside her, but they also scared her. "But I don't have the money for more classes. I'm already barely keeping up." Jennings shrugged. "Then you work harder. That's the only way anyone makes it." He tossed a towel in the bin and left without another word. It wasn't kindness, not exactly. But Megan took it as a challenge. At school, her friendship with Carla Ruiz deepened. Carla had a loud laugh, a quick wit, and a way of making even the most exhausted nights bearable. She often shared her family's home-cooked leftovers with Megan, who pretended she wasn't starving. "You've got that look again," Carla teased one evening as they folded capes in the training salon. "What look?" "The one where you're pretending you're fine when you're not." Carla nudged her. "You can talk to me, you know." Megan wanted to, but the words stuck. Admitting how broke she was felt like weakness, and weakness was dangerous. Instead, she forced a smile. "I'm just tired." But tired wasn't the word. She was lonely. The city was crowded, but Megan often felt invisible. The only letters she received were from her father, short notes written in blocky handwriting, usually with a few bills tucked inside. Her mother never wrote. By spring, Megan's savings had vanished. She pawned a pair of earrings her grandmother had given her, just to cover her dorm fees. Some nights she considered giving up, going back to Millbrook, taking the safe route at the sewing factory. But then she pictured Linda's smug face, Ethan's sad eyes, and her father's sacrifices. No, she couldn't quit. One evening, after a long shift, she returned to the dorm to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was $20 and a note in messy handwriting. "For your dream, don't stop now." There was no name, but Megan recognized the shaky letters. Her father. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the money, tears stinging her eyes. He was scraping together everything he had for her. He believed in her, even if no one else did. "I won't waste it, Dad," she whispered into the quiet room. "I swear." That night, she opened her notebook and started sketching. Not clothes, not hairstyles, her salon. She drew the front windows, the rows of chairs, the shelves lined with products she couldn't yet afford. She had no idea how long it would take, or how many nights she'd go hungry along the way. But for the first time, she believed it might be possible. By the summer of her second year, Megan had finally earned enough trust to handle her own clients. Mr. Jennings, who rarely handed out praise, gave her a nod one busy Saturday. "Chair 4's open. Take the walk-in." Megan's heart pounded as she grabbed her scissors. The walk-in was a middle-aged woman with short, greying hair and a sharp tone. "I just need a trim," the woman said, flipping open a magazine. "Nothing fancy." Megan nodded quickly, her palms sweaty. She repeated every step she'd practiced in training. Section the hair, measure carefully, snip with confidence. But nerves made her hand shake, and by the time she finished, the left side was nearly an inch shorter than the right. The woman caught it immediately. "What did you do?" she snapped, twisting her head toward the mirror. "It's uneven. Look." Megan's throat closed. I can fix it." "Fix it?" The woman slammed the magazine shut. "You've ruined it! I look ridiculous!" Jennings hurried over, his jaw tight. "Step aside, Carter." He smoothed things out with quick, practiced cuts, though the client still stormed out without paying. When the door slammed, Jennings turned on her. "What was that? You can't freeze up like that in this business. People don't forget a bad haircut." "I'm sorry," Megan whispered, blinking back tears. "Sorry doesn't pay the bills," he said coldly. "You want to do this for real? You better toughen up." That night, Megan wanted to disappear. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if Linda had been right all along. Maybe she didn't belong in the city. Maybe she'd never be more than a girl pretending she could make it. The next day, Carla found her in the break room, staring at a cup of untouched coffee. "Hey," Carla said gently, sliding into the chair across from her. "I heard about yesterday. Don't let it eat you alive." "I messed up," Megan muttered. "Jennings is right. People don't forget bad cuts." Carla shrugged. "So what? Everyone screws up their first time. You think I didn't? I once dyed a woman's hair pumpkin orange by accident. She cried for 2 hours straight. But guess what? I learned, and I got better." Megan gave her a doubtful look. "Pumpkin orange?" Carla grinned, bright as a Halloween jack-o'-lantern. "But now, my colour jobs are fire. Mistakes don't mean you're finished. They just mean you're starting." For the first time since the disaster, Megan laughed. Later that week, Jennings gave her another chance. The client was a quiet man in his 40s who only wanted a trim. This time, Megan breathed slowly, moved carefully, and when the man looked in the mirror, he smiled. "Looks good," he said simply, handing her a tip before leaving. Jennings didn't praise her, but he didn't scold her either. And for Megan, that silence felt like victory. That night, she wrote to her father. I cut my first real client's hair today, and it didn't go horribly wrong. I think I can do this. I really think I can." She didn't know if Robert would write back, but just putting the words on paper made them feel true. Spring turned to summer again, and Megan's life in the city was finally finding rhythm. She was cutting more clients on her own, earning tips, and even daring to think about the future beyond survival. She still lived in a cramped dorm room, still stretched every dollar, but for the first time she felt steady on her feet. Then the letter came. It was from her mother. Megan hadn't received mail from Linda in years, and the shaky handwriting on the envelope immediately made her stomach twist. She tore it open at her small desk, her hands trembling. "Your father passed yesterday. Heart attack. Funeral on Saturday." That was it. No details. No comfort. Just 10 words that shattered her world. Megan sank onto the bed, clutching the paper so tightly it crumpled. Her father, the one person who had believed in her dream, who had slipped her money when he had none to spare, who had defended her when everyone else mocked her, was gone. The bus ride back to Millbrook felt endless. The closer she got, the heavier her chest felt. When she stepped off at the familiar stop, the town looked smaller than ever, as if it had shrunk in her absence. At the church, Linda stood stiffly at the front, accepting condolences with dry eyes. When Megan approached, her mother's gaze was sharp. "About time you showed up," Linda said. "He always worried about you, you know. Worried himself sick, and now look." Megan recoiled at the words, but she didn't answer. She just moved past her mother to the casket. Robert lay still, his hands folded, his face oddly peaceful. Megan touched the edge of the wood and whispered so no one could hear, "I'll make you proud, Dad. I promise." The rest of the day blurred. Relatives murmured about how young he'd been. Neighbours gossiped about Megan's city life, and Linda snapped at anyone who lingered too long. By evening, Megan couldn't stand it anymore. She slipped out and walked to the old oak tree behind the schoolyard. Ethan was already there, leaning against the trunk, hands shoved in his pockets. His face lit up when he saw her, then dimmed when he realised why she had come back. "I'm sorry, Meg," he said quietly. "Your dad was a good man." Megan nodded, unable to speak. She sat down in the grass, and Ethan joined her. For a while, neither said anything. The cicadas buzzed in the distance, the same as when they were kids. But the world felt different now, emptier. Finally, Megan whispered, "I don't know how to keep going without him." "You will," Ethan said gently, "because he wanted you to. He believed in you more than anyone." Megan looked at him, her throat tight. "Then I can't give up. Not now. If I quit, it's like losing him twice." Ethan's eyes softened. "Then don't quit. Make him proud. Make yourself proud." That night, Megan left Millbrook for the last time. She boarded the bus back to the city with nothing but her father's old watch on her wrist and his words echoing in her heart. She didn't know how or when, but she swore she would succeed, not just for herself, but for him. The months after her father's death were the hardest Megan had ever lived through. Grief weighed on her like a stone, but it also lit a fire under her. Every time exhaustion tempted her to quit, she pictured Robert's tired smile as he handed her that coffee tin of money. she couldn't let that sacrifice be wasted. She threw herself into work. By day, she finished her sewing program to keep her scholarship. By night, she trained and cut hair until her hands cramped. Mr. Jennings began assigning her more clients, and soon she was earning steady tips. But the idea of working in someone else's salon forever made Megan restless. When she walked home through the city streets, she couldn't help scanning shop fronts, picturing her name in neat letters above a window. Megan Carter, salon owner. Carla teased her for it. "Girl, you're not even 21 and you're already planning to run the show? Why not?" Megan countered, half defiant. "If I work hard enough, save every dime, I can do it." Carla shook her head, smiling. "You've got guts, but salons aren't just scissors and hairspray. Rent, advertising, staff, products, it takes more than skill to keep the lights on." Megan knew she was right, but she refused to let the dream shrink. She began setting money aside in an envelope hidden beneath her mattress. Every tip, every spare dollar went into the pile. Slowly, the stack grew. After 2 years of saving, Megan spotted an ad in the newspaper. Small commercial space for sale. Reasonable price. She almost dropped her coffee. When she visited, the building was shabby, its paint peeling, its windows cloudy. But to Megan, it gleamed. "This is it." She whispered to Carla, who had tagged along. "This?" Carla wrinkled her nose. "It looks like a storage closet." "Not yet," Megan said, "but it will." With trembling hands, she signed the paperwork. A week later, she stood in the middle of the empty room, the keys biting into her palm. The space smelled like dust and old plaster, but to her, it smelled like freedom. "I did it, Dad," she whispered into the silence. The reality, however, hit fast. The renovations drained nearly all her savings. The cheap chairs she bought wobbled. The mirrors were second-hand and scratched. She hired 2 fresh graduates, Sophie Lane and another girl named Tanya, to help. But the clients didn't come. The first week, they had fewer than 10 appointments. The second week was even worse. Megan found herself working late into the night, scrubbing floors and trying not to cry when the register came up nearly empty. At home, her fridge was bare. Some nights she went to bed hungry, her stomach twisting. She told herself it was just a rough start, that every business struggled at first. But as the bills piled up and Sophie quietly handed in her notice, Megan wondered if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. One rainy evening, sitting alone in the dim salon, she whispered into the shadows, "Dad, I don't know if I can do this without you." The only answer was the hum of the old fluorescent light above her. By autumn, Megan was barely holding the salon together. The paint still peeled, the chairs still wobbled, and the phone hardly rang. The envelope of savings under her mattress was long gone, replaced by a drawer stuffed with overdue bills. Each morning she forced a smile for the few clients who walked in. But when she locked up at night, the weight of failure pressed down so heavily she could hardly breathe. Carla noticed. "You're running yourself into the ground," she said one evening, bringing Megan a bag of groceries. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't instant noodles?" Megan gave a hollow laugh. "Who can afford real food when the electric bill looks like that?" Carla reached across the tiny kitchen table and grabbed her hand. Maybe it's time to admit you can't do this alone. Get a loan, an investor, something. But Megan shook her head. I won't risk owing money I can't pay back. And investors? No one's going to throw cash at some broke girl from Millbrook. Her pride kept her chained to the sinking ship. Each morning she unlocked the salon, wiped down the mirrors, and waited for clients who never came. The breaking point arrived on a grey Thursday. Rain hammered the windows all day, and not a single customer stepped inside. By closing time, Megan sat in the salon's worn-out chair, staring at her reflection, the fluorescent lights washing her out. Her hair was limp, her eyes ringed with shadows. She barely recognized herself. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. For the first time, she considered shutting the doors for good. Sell the chairs, break the lease, find another job. Anything but this daily humiliation of watching her dream rot in front of her. She stood to turn off the lights when the door jingled. Startled, she looked up to see a woman shaking off an umbrella. She was in her late 30s, tall, elegant, with sharp cheekbones and a silk scarf draped around her neck. She looked out of place in Megan's dingy little shop. Are you still open? The woman asked. Megan hesitated, then nodded. Yes, come in. The woman smiled faintly. Good. I need a stylist. Not just anyone, though. Someone who listens. My last one ruined my colour. She pulled off her scarf to reveal streaky, uneven highlights. Something in her tone, confident yet weary, made Megan straighten her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she felt like a professional again. Take a seat, Megan said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'll fix it. As Megan worked, the woman studied her in the mirror. You're good, she said finally. Better than most I've seen, and I've been to some of the best salons in the city. Megan flushed. Thank you. I've been trying to build something here. The woman gave her a long look, then extended her hand. Ava Sinclair. I run a boutique 2 blocks over. Maybe you've seen it. Megan blinked. She had. Sinclair's boutique was one of the fanciest shops in the neighborhood. When Ava left, her hair gleaming, she paused at the door. You have talent, Megan. Don't waste it. I'll be back. The bell jingled behind her, leaving Megan staring at the empty salon, her heart pounding. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope. True to her word, Ava Sinclair returned the following week. This time, she didn't come alone. She brought a friend. By the end of the appointment, both women were laughing with Megan, praising her work and booking follow-ups. Word spread quickly. Ava, with her boutique clientele and sharp social circle, began recommending Megan to everyone she knew. Within a month, the empty afternoons at the salon disappeared. Saturdays were booked solid. For the first time since opening, Megan could breathe. One evening, after a long day of cutting, colouring and styling, Megan locked up and found Ava waiting outside. Walk with me, Ava said, slipping her arm through Megan's. They strolled down the quiet street, the glow of shop windows spilling onto the sidewalk. Ava was calm, deliberate. Every step, every word seemed chosen. You've built something here, Ava said. But talent alone won't carry it forever. You need polish, branding, an image that matches your skill. Megan laughed softly. Tell that to my wobbly chairs and scratched mirrors. Ava's eyes glinted. That's exactly what I'm talking about. People pay for more than haircuts, Megan. They pay for the experience. When a woman sits in your chair, she wants to feel like she's stepping into a world where she's the most important person alive. Megan frowned. I know all that. I just don't have the money. That's where I come in, Ava said smoothly. I'd like to invest, help you refurbish, redesign, maybe even rebrand. In exchange, I'd take a percentage of the business. Not controlling, just enough to make it worth my while. The offer hit Megan like a gust of wind. For months, she'd been drowning, and here was a lifeline. But she also remembered Carla's warning about investors. They don't just give, they take. What would that mean for me? Megan asked cautiously. It would mean, Ava said, stopping beneath the glow of a street lamp, that you stop fighting alone. That you get to be the artist while I handle the polish. Together, we could turn your little shop into something this city talks about. Megan lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Part of her ached with gratitude. This was the chance she had prayed for. But another part of her bristled. The salon, shabby as it was hers. Every crack in the wall, every late night scrubbing floors, every tear shed over empty days, it was all hers. Was she ready to share it? The next morning, she found herself at her father's old grave, kneeling in the damp grass. Dad, she whispered, what would you tell me to do? I'm so close to making this real. But I don't want to lose myself in the process. The wind rustled through the trees, offering no answer, only the sound of her own heartbeat, urging her toward a decision. Megan asked Ava for a week to think. In that week, she barely slept. Every customer who smiled at her in the mirror reminded her what she stood to gain. Every glance at the peeling paint and broken dryer reminded her of what she could no longer manage on her own. Finally, she called Carla over one evening, poured them both tea, and laid out the offer. Carla listened, then leaned back in her chair. So, what's really scaring you? Losing the salon or losing control? Megan hesitated. Both. This place is my blood and sweat, Car. If I let Ava in, it's not just mine anymore. Carla nodded slowly. Maybe. But maybe holding on too tight is what's been strangling it. You're afraid to let anyone help you, even when you're drowning. Your dad wouldn't want you to drown, Meg. He'd want you to swim. The next morning, Megan met Ava at the boutique. Ava looked as poised as ever, sipping her espresso, as if she'd known all along what Megan's answer would be. I'll do it, Megan said, her voice steady. But on one condition. This salon doesn't lose its heart. It's not going to become some cold, glossy place where people feel small. It has to stay human. People come here because they're seen, not just styled. Ava's smile was sharp but genuine. There, you'll be the heart, I'll be the bones. Together, we'll build something that lasts. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The chairs were replaced, the walls repainted, the mirrors framed in soft light. Ava handled the contractors and branding. Megan poured herself into her craft. By the grand reopening, the salon no longer looked like a worn-out dream, but a place where women wanted to be. Bright, welcoming, alive. On opening day, clients filled the waiting area, laughter spilling out onto the sidewalk. Megan moved from chair to chair with grace, her hands steady, her smile real. For the first time, She didn't feel like she was pretending to be a business owner. She was one. As the last customer left that night, Megan stood in the quiet salon, inhaling the scent of fresh paint and hairspray. The mirrors reflected a woman she finally recognized. Not the girl who had once failed. Not the one who almost gave up, but someone stronger, steadier, and unafraid to stand tall. Carla popped her head in, grinning. "Full house on day one. Looks like you made the right choice." Megan turned, eyes shining. "I think I finally did." She reached over to switch off the lights, her heart steady, her dream alive again. This time, not fragile, but built to last. If you like the story, I would be very happy to have your support. Click the thumbs up. And to not miss new stories, subscribe and click on the bell. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and all the best.